All right, it's a Friday night. We're back on our regular schedule for
We're
evidence-based
we're
triathlon.
back.
We never went anywhere, but
No,
no, actually, we did go places. But
we did go places. I had a pretty eventful week. I didn't tell you this when we started talking, but I got stung by a bee
oh, I saw that on Strava. Tell
in
the
the
story.
in the mouth on my tongue. So I was running. I think I had a 10-mile run planned out, and about mile 8. And this is not the first time this has happened. This is the second time I've been stung in the tongue. Something obviously came in my mouth, and I just grabbed, as you're running, I pulled it out, and
Hmm.
instantly, man, it was like somebody stabbed me in the tongue.
Oh, wow.
Like, I couldn't move. I stopped, and I just kind
Are
of,
you allergic to bees or?
no, I'm not.
Okay.
But well, maybe I a little bit. I think we're all allergic a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
So I stood there for like 20 or 30 seconds, and I was swearing, and I'm like feeling my tongue. I'm like
Yeah.
trying to get the stinger out,
Yeah.
and I couldn't feel the stinger. And I was doing a it wasn't an out and back. I was running one way, and my wife was picking me up. Marie was picking me up, and so, but I was kind of in a secluded spot of a path here that there was no way for her to come, and I was like
Mm.
a couple miles from either entrance.
Hmm.
So I called her, or she called me. She's like, "Hey, you're taking a little longer than normal." I'm like, "Yeah, I really, I really slowed down. I got stung by a bee in my
Could you
tongue."
could you speak coherently at that
No,
point?
it was actually it definitely was difficult to speak. So I get to her, and of course she takes a picture, and
Yeah.
I'll share the picture with you. But my tongue was twice the size,
Oh my goodness.
and I
That's
was,
scary.
and she's just like, "We're going to the hospital," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, no, we're not. We're going. There's a Rite Aid just down the street. We're going to go there. We're going to get some Benadryl."
Mhm.
So we go into the Rite Aid, and I get some liquid cap Benadryl, and by the time I actually got it with water, I could barely swallow,
Oh wow. Yeah,
but I
that's
could
good.
breathe fine. So it was because my tongue had
Mm.
swollen so much.
Hmm.
I could get the water in and get the Benadryl in. So I took one, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take two.
Yeah.
So took another one, and then we got back to our hotel, and my face started to swell,
Oh boy.
especially on the right side, and my neck started swelling,
Oh,
and
that's time to go to the hospital then.
but I could breathe perfectly fine. And
Up
I'm
until you won't be
I'm
able to.
trained to, and I teach people about anaphylaxis, so
Yeah.
I wasn't too concerned just yet. My whole thing was the
Oh,
breathing, right?
jeez.
So, anyways, I couldn't talk by this point. Like
Yeah.
I could barely talk, and I'm like, basically, I told Marie like I'm fine. I just need to lay down and basically just relax. And um, but then of course, two Benadryl, and I'm like half asleep. So I'm like laying on the bed like Cosmo, like in the middle of the afternoon, just like sleeping it off. But the day was completely shot.
Oh,
Then the next day, my tongue was still pretty swollen
yeah.
and hard.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, wow.
it was hard. And but I'd planned to go to Crater Lake to ride, and I did it anyway. So
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I was fine.
Yeah.
But
It's just
yeah,
a flesh wound.
well, I didn't mention this, that when I got to the car, then I was able to look in the mirror, and the stinger was still in me.
Oh, okay. So it was
And
still
so
pumping venom in you.
yeah, so the
Yeah.
other time it happened to me, I was actually able to pull the stinger
Yeah.
really. Like, I
Yeah.
got it really quickly,
Yeah.
and that was actually, I was riding my bike on the way to work one time, and that
That's
happened.
amazing that the bee was able to sting you in such a short period of time. That's
Yeah, but I wonder if like, it was me that caused the stinger to go in. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
right, right.
And then so last summer we were in Oregon as well, and I got stung above the eye. This is actually on our podcast. We talked about it.
Yeah.
My eye swelled shut,
Oh,
and so I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to. So the listeners can tell us what we can do to avoid bees stinging us while we're out riding our
yeah,
bike.
right. Well, I'm just glad that it didn't happen on a Friday.
Well, yeah. So you'd be talking by yourself.
That's right. I mean, I'd be it's hard enough to hear, with my hearing loss, but then I'd have to try to decipher what you'd say with a swollen tongue.
Yeah, it was probably till like Monday afternoon evening, as this happened on Sunday, Monday evening where I could actually talk pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So, anyways,
Wow.
the Sunday, I was going to swim in the lake on Sunday. That didn't happen because I was going to swim
Yeah,
after I
great,
ran.
great. Well, we've got a bunch of people up in Coeur d'Alene,
Yeah,
the Northwest, and let's hope that they don't run into any swarms of bees or any bees at all.
yeah.
But yeah, we want to wish everyone a big good luck for the race and have a great race up there.
Yes, Coeur d'Alene is a very, very special place, and I raced there in 2017, I think it was, well, 2018 maybe, and honestly, one of the most beautiful places in the country, and I know they're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
Especially the run. Actually,
Hmm.
the swim and the run are the two things that are awesome. The
Oh,
swim,
really?
the water is so clear, you could see like you could see everything. It's so crystal clear, and the run, you run a lot of it right along the lake,
Hmm.
and it's mostly shaded, or not most, a lot of it shaded. It's pretty nice. Obviously the big thing at Coeur d'Alene is the weather
Yeah.
and the heat. I was there 3 weeks ago, and we were cold. It was in the 50s,
Hmm.
and now it's 102.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's gonna keep going up until Monday, but at least yeah, at least it's not gonna be the hottest up there, but it is
well,
gonna be hot. And
and I think that the people from Vegas, you got a little bit of an advantage. You've been
hmm.
training in the heat for
Yeah.
over a month already of plus 100, plus 100 training. And so we talked about before, encouraging people to heat acclimatize.
Yep.
Don't just keep avoiding going out when it's hot,
That's right.
especially if you're going to be doing a race in the summer.
Hmm.
Anywhere in North America, right? Like if you're going to be racing in the summer, even Ironman Canada. I mean, you've raced Ironman
Yep.
Canada.
It can happen.
Penticton now is where Ironman Canada is going to be. There's many days it's over 100 degrees in the summer there.
Hmm. Mm.
Oh yeah, well, Penticton is actually, for those people that don't know, it's probably it's just a couple hundred miles north of Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very,
Yeah,
very.
we did Penticton and we had a heat wave for that race. I
How
remember
hot
that.
was it? Do you remember? Was it over 100?
Oh, I don't remember the temperature, but it was hot, and it's high and dry there too. So
Yeah,
yeah, that
exactly.
was that was a long day. But I think I was coming off an injury for that one too, because I know I had to walk a large part of the marathon for that one, and that was Laura's first race. So
That was our first
yeah,
race or first
first
Ironman?
Ironman,
Okay.
first full. So. Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm bummed I'm not up in our, as much as I don't do well in the heat, I certainly miss, you know, towing the start line with all our friends up there.
Yeah,
But yeah, speaking of toes, that
there you go.
um,
So
I
John,
made I made the right decision because I would not have been able to even walk 26. But
so if somebody did not race well in the heat,
mhm.
where could they do an Ironman that they could pretty much say, it's probably not going to be hot?
Norseman.
Yeah. Yes, in Norway.
Yeah, that's pretty guaranteed. Well, Wales is supposed to be a cold race.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's on my list to do. Ironman Cork, I think, is also, and then I
Oh,
think you'd
yeah.
have to go down into South America, like Argentina.
But nothing in North America, right? Like I can't think of a North American race
Not
that.
one that you're gonna feel like you're pretty confident it's gonna be a cool race. So,
So I was actually thinking that maybe Ironman California, what
oh,
Tom
you
was
think
saying.
so?
Well, it's mid to late October
Hmm.
in Sacramento, and you look at the historic weather. It's 70s,
Yeah. What's the elevation of Sacramento?
nothing.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's like a couple hundred feet, I think.
No, I mean of the city.
A couple hundred feet.
Oh, is it really? Oh, I
It's
thought it
not.
was higher. Interesting. Yeah.
It's pretty low.
Hmm.
So maybe. maybe that one. We'll see. But of course, first year will be an Ironman there. It'll be 100 degrees.
I haven't signed up for it, so it won't be a heat wave. So don't worry.
Yeah, because you're not signed up, it'll be 65.
That's right. Oh man. Well, Coeur d'Alene, they're doing that full on a rotating basis. So apparently it will come back again in 3 years.
Okay.
So next year they move it back to this rotating Ironman. They're moving it back to St. George, and I was able to get into that, which was really nice. And then I don't know where they go for the other year. We'll see. And maybe it goes back to Boulder.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's going to go back to Boulder or somewhere else in the Pacific Northwest because there's not
Yeah.
another, maybe Boise or something. Who knows?
Well, now that they have the 70.3 Oregon,
Yep.
maybe that's an interlude into that area.
Yeah,
So
we'll see. It's interesting because especially with all of basically every race being sold out,
yeah.
it'll be really interesting to see what actually ultimately does happen next
Yeah.
year.
Well, the good thing is with the weather, it doesn't always influence the swim. So,
Not always.
yeah. I mean, well, weather, I say that because I'm trying to make a segue here, but
I know.
obviously the wind does play a role in, creating waves. And I know our St. George, Ironman St. George, one of the last times it was hailed, there was a big issue with the waves, and it can influence the surface water temperature. So,
No, for sure. And it's the one really good thing about races starting so early for the most part is generally the lowest wind of the day is at
yeah.
5, 6 in the morning.
Hmm.
So even on some of the windy days, oftentimes you'll get the swim in before it picks up. I know definitely even some of our local races at Lake Mead, it's been like that. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
at 7 o'clock in the morning, the wind picks up and we're already out of the water and
Hmm.
onto our bikes. So
Oh, that's true. So we were talking swim tips
yep,
last time,
yep.
and
I'm gonna go back to those.
we're ready to pick up on. There's 20 tips, and we got
Yep.
through 10 of them last time.
Yep. So we're on to number 11, and this is something I don't do enough of, but since I read this last week, and I really want to start doing this, and it's use a band frequently. So it says
Mm.
the best swimming drill there is.
Hmm.
Short reps with lots of rest at first. Both propulsion and body position will improve. So, John, what we're talking about here is an ankle band.
Yep.
So, what's your experience with ankle bands?
I have hardly ever used them. I used them maybe once in college. I said
What?
I didn't like these. That's it. Yeah, I have not done bands. Now I
Okay.
know people that do use them a lot, and I, the idea behind them is to really um, sort of break that link between what you're doing with your kick, probably wrong, and what your arms are doing. And I do believe that the idea behind the bands is it does allow you to not force you not to kick, and then your legs will just start naturally moving the way your arms are moving. And I think that helps find that rhythm between the legs and the arms. And what some people will do is they'll put the band on and then put a pull buoy on as well, because with the bands and no kick, I mean, there's a tendency to just your lower body to really sink and make it really hard to swim. And it's not necessarily designed to swim hard. It's obviously harder, but it is really about finding that balance in swimming.
Well, and I think even if your feet were to drop an inch, it does
Mhm.
increase your resistance,
It
right?
does. Yeah.
And so then it would be viable as a strength
Yep.
or some kind of resistance.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then I guess over time, if you could figure out a way to not let your feet sink
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get better balance, because I think that's the other part of the
Yeah.
band is the fore aft or upper body lower body balance.
Yep. So you use the bands? Do you
I
wear
I
your?
did I
Okay.
did I did a lot, and but I did with a pull buoy.
Yeah. Okay.
But what I would do, and I haven't done this in a while, what I would do is I would do 25 without a pull buoy, then have a nice rest. 25 without, have a nice rest, and it was hard. Like the
Yeah.
25 was hard,
Yeah.
hard swimming, and
Hmm.
then I would put the pull buoy in,
Hmm.
and then I would do like 50, 50, 50, and then that would be about it.
Okay.
And then I don't know what it was. I guess maybe the coach I had wasn't a big fan of it, and so we one coach was big on it, and the next one wasn't. So then
Hmm.
I stopped using it.
Hmm.
But I think I'm gonna after reading this, I think I'm gonna give it another go because I
Okay.
know one of my issues is the timing and the balance.
Yeah, I think that's really critical for a lot of us. Now, did you ever try it with your buoyancy shorts?
Yes.
Okay. Did they
So
not have enough buoyancy or?
not enough.
Okay.
But maybe the pants, like if I don't have any, but some people like have the pants,
Mm.
like the full, like the lava pants, I guess they're called, the external
Hmm.
ones, whatever. Maybe that would be enough.
Okay.
Um, but I know, like I've seen people at the pool with a band, nothing else, and just swim, and they're horizontal.
Yeah.
And like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? And
Okay.
maybe they just had great position to begin with.
Hmm. Well, it could be that, or it could be the speed that they're swimming too,
Yeah,
because as you start swimming faster, could then have the water can push the legs back up.
yeah, that's true.
But it is, and I can see why some coaches will go away from it, because even back in college, I remember it's tough on your shoulders if you're not doing it right, and if you don't have a great stroke, especially. And back in college, I didn't necessarily have a great stroke. Maybe I'll go back and try it now, but I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
but I think the key, in avoiding injury in this context, and we talked about overuse injury being, a basically a prescription problem.
hmm
I think the prescription is big rest
yeah.
because this is going to take a lot of muscular strength to do,
hmm
and people inherently love to rest and hate to rest.
hmm
You know what I mean by that?
yeah.
And so I think that, if you say, hey, let's do 25 and then have a minute rest, most people are like, they're antsy. Like I gotta go. But if you
Yeah.
think about what we're trying to, what you're doing, and when you're going, let's say 20 seconds all out in a very, very hard session, that's like doing, like lat pull downs.
hmm
So you do a full set of lat pull downs. You wouldn't say, okay, well, 20 seconds later, I'm going to do another full
yeah.
set of lat pull downs. You would give yourself, if you're at the gym, you might give yourself 3 minutes,
hmm
right? But we can't do that in swimming because, like
You
you'll
get too
get
cold.
cold.
Get cold.
You get too cold. So I wonder maybe if you could do like a band and then like kick,
Uh-huh.
you know, maybe do 50 kick on your side and then come back. And so you've given yourself, your shoulders a chance to
hmm hmm
kind of recover. I don't know. I'm spitballing it here because
Yeah.
I'm gonna try some of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Although although we're not supposed to kick because that was higher up on our list. But
Well, yeah, but when you use them this time, really focus in on how the legs are moving when you've restricted them, because my sense is that you'll find that rhythm, and just pay attention to see what they're doing,
yeah,
you know, and then say, okay, maybe that's how I need to hit my timing. So,
exactly. All right, so that's a good one. The next one, 12. Use paddles with awareness of engaging lats.
yeah.
Furthermore, it says paddles are primarily a technical tool to take more strokes with better mechanics. The result of which is learning how to use your prime movers more or your lats.
Yeah.
We have not really touched on lats in a while. We did some anatomy stuff where we showed some pictures of lats. And the reason I'm saying this is because there is a story that with my swim group that one of the coaches was like, "Hey, make sure you really feel it in your lats." And one of the
hmm
swimmers was like, "What's my lats?"
Yeah. Right.
Right. And so we're kind of in the business, so we know what lats are,
hmm
but the lat muscle or the latissimus dorsi is the prime one of the prime movers of shoulder internal rotation. So going from
Yeah.
here to here. There's several other prime movers. So your pectoralis major and your anterior deltoid are the other big ones. But the lat is the more powerful in that,
hmm
especially when you lift your shoulder up. And everything I've ever read about swimming is like swimming should come from your lats.
hmm
And you look at like top level swimmers and they've got this big muscle underneath,
Yeah.
right? They almost look like they have wings underneath their
That's
their
right.
their, their shoulders.
Yeah.
And so that's their lat. And
hmm
I, for one, know when I'm engaging my lats, I definitely feel it. I don't know about
hmm
you. Can you feel a difference like when you
Oh,
really,
yeah. Yeah. And when I'm not swimming with good technique, I know I'm not feeling, or usually it's the other way around. When I hit my technique, then I can feel it. And so, yeah, you can sense it.
And I know you don't do a lot of paddle work, but do you feel it more when you use paddles?
Oh, I actually love paddles, but
Oh, okay.
I try not to use them as much because I get addicted to them because I just love swimming with them, and I know I'd love to go do a swim run with paddles, but then when I take the paddles off, it was always hard to transition back to a good stroke. So it was me messing up my own stroke and taking them off. But using paddles did help me develop the technique that I do have. And one of the biggest things that I accidentally did was break my wristband on the paddle because I always used to, the old days it was just a flat piece of plexiglass and band around the finger, actually a band for the thumb, and then a band for the wrist. And was using my paddles and it just degraded. All of a sudden, I didn't have a wrist or a thumb band. I just had my middle one, and I'm like, well, I like my paddles. I'm going to keep trying it. And my gosh, that really, by doing it and not having it secured to the wrist or the thumb, that really opened my eyes in terms of my stroke, not the front part so much, but the back part. And I was feeling that pull of my hand when I exited the water incorrectly because the paddle would just flop down
Mm.
and then it would, then recover. And I like, wait, this isn't right. And so I had to develop the full stroke, not only from the beginning part, but the ending part with the paddle and the paddle just not functioning. Well, it was doing exactly what it needed to do it alerted me to something was wrong in my stroke.
Yeah. No, I I agree, and I use the thinnest paddle with just your thumb sticks in the hole, and that's it.
Yep.
And as soon as my hand enters the wrong way or exits the wrong way, it falls off,
Yeah. Oh,
and
good. Yeah.
or just kind of flops to the side or something like that. And it's really good. I'm addicted to paddles as well. But for me, it really helps my stroke.
hmm
Like I'm most of my swimming, I'll do like let's say I'm doing 10 50s. I'll do five with paddles and five without.
Yep. I
And
like that.
the paddle really helps me. Not the number one thing the paddle does for me, it does help me with my lats, but it I tend to go too deep if I don't have a paddle with my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the feeling like I feel like I need more resistance, so I go
Yep.
deeper. But when I have
Yep.
the paddle, I get the resistance.
Okay.
And so yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of using them. And then also, you know, many of the times I swim, I've already done a bike or a run that day.
Yep.
My legs are trashed,
Mm-hmm.
and so just when everyone else is kicking, I'll just grab the paddles
Yeah.
and
No, that's great. Oh, I'm a firm believer in them too. I just don't in my workouts now. I don't use them simply because where I'm at with my
so
swim.
so John, neither of us are like our swim coaches, but
hmm
um, I've also heard this, and maybe you know more about this, about the size of the paddle, and then I've heard things like, well, a bigger paddle is good for developing strength,
hmm
but it can also cause problems, especially if your technique is a little bit off. And so, you know, but I see all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
So do you have a kind of rules of thumbs or things that you
Yeah.
believe?
You can get big plate
Yeah, dinner
size
plates.
paddles. That's right. I used to swim with a guy who would use those exclusively, and they worked for him up until he was having shoulder problems.
Yeah.
And the problem is that by having a bigger surface area here, you're really minimizing any movement of the hand through the water, which is exactly what we want. We don't want to move the hand through the water. We want to move the body past the hand.
Right.
And so that wearing that paddle helps prevent that hand from moving backwards. But there is a limit because now, or is a trade-off, is that now you've got this big torque that you end up having to put on the shoulder. So this all goes back to injury, minimizing risk of injury is, yeah, you can use any size paddle, but you need to introduce them slowly and any sharp pain, you need to pull them out and not use them. There's value though in using small paddles because a lot of times all we need is some key to tell our brain that we're doing something wrong. Because it's so hard in swimming to know exactly where our arms are, because we're getting all this sensory feedback with the water flowing around us. We can't always figure out, what we're doing. And so by having this, even just a little bit of increased surface area on the hand, you can get a better sense of what the hand is actually doing all throughout the strokes. And like I thought, even just, in an unintentional way.
Yeah. So I would think it might be best practice to have a couple different size paddles, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe if you're going to do some strength work and you're like we were just talked about with the
Hmm.
band, do 25s, right?
Hmm.
With big rest with big
Hmm.
paddles.
Yeah.
But then if you want to, let's say, do some endurance, strength endurance stuff, maybe
Yeah.
you go to a small paddle,
Yeah.
and you do your five, you do your 1050s on with
Hmm.
20 seconds rest or whatever. I'm
Yep.
just spitballing it here.
Use them with a pull buoy, use them with fins. Yeah, a lot of times I look at this as, disruptors, and you've got to sometimes go to an extreme to help people understand what their stroke is doing. I actually, when I did coach swimming, I worked with swimmers. We do the thumb drag
Yeah.
drill. I'm sure people have heard of this, where as you recover, you drag your thumb up to your armpit, and then you go out. And the whole idea was to practice a higher elbow recovery. That's gone a little out of style now, but still, what was interesting is I'd work with swimmers and say, okay, we're going to drag our thumb up, the side, and we do the drill, and they get to the side, and I said, did you do the drill? And they, oh yeah, no, did it. And they literally took their arm and swung it around like this. They weren't even close
But it
to
was different, right?
that. It was different, and just minusculely different that they were doing, that they then thought that they were dragging it up. And so I said, no, you need to drag, you need to feel it now, and then go do that. And it was really hard to get people to change their stroke. And we've talked about that with running even. It's so hard to get people to change. And so sometimes you need to go to these extremes,
I agree.
and paddles is a good way to do that.
Agreed. Okay, I like that one. Okay, next one. Keep head low on breathing and in open water.
Hmm.
Head down, feet up. It's a common body position error. So keep head low on breathing and in open water. I don't really know what that means.
So, if you, and obviously we deal with this when we are sighting during open water, but if you bring your head up out of the water in any amount, anything that exits the surface of the water, something else is going to go below the water. And it's
Right.
usually
Oh, we're talking about more about balance here.
that's right. It's usually your back end. And now you're swimming like this again. So yeah, like think about treading water. If you tread water, you try to keep your head close to the surface, and even like this, because it's easier. But if you have to tread water and you have this much out of the water, or if you're doing like water polo and you got to get this far or this far out of the water, that's really hard,
Yeah.
because you need to generate a lot of force to get the body out of the water. Everything you submerge is actually helping with buoyancy force. And so by keeping the head low, you're going to have a better tendency to keep the other end of your body up a little bit higher. And you're trying to prevent, you're trying to prevent this, because if you look at it this way, this is increased surface area as in the direction you're headed. And any increased surface area in the direction you're heading is bad. You want to minimize that as much as possible.
So this one is really interesting to me because I've had obviously several swim coaches that have talked to me about head position,
Hmm.
and I video myself a lot often swimming. My head, unless I really work on it, is below the water.
Mm-hmm.
Like my whole head,
Hmm.
and like just the very top, like here, will be
Yeah.
above the water.
Hmm.
And so then I look at like ITU racing. I watch it on TV,
Yeah.
and I see like their heads, like half of their head is up. Like
Hmm.
you can see their whole swim cap. Some they have numbers on them. You can
Yep.
see
Yep.
the whole thing. And I'm like, how is this? Sounds to me like the opposite of what I'm trying to do. Keep my head down. Their heads are up. And so and the
Well,
same if I watch watch some of the Olympic trials, and the same thing, like you watch the elite swimmers and freestyle, their head's
look,
not completely submerged.
no, you'll see it right here, especially back here. Well, think about a boat moving through the water. you have this wave that builds up on the front part of the water, although the boat is still moving relatively level. I mean, for our purposes of discussing. So part of what's happening is those sometimes in ITU, especially and Olympics, I mean, they're swimming so fast that they are building up a wave in front of them. And
Mm,
that ends up being a resistance to them. And there's this whole thing about hull speed and wavelength that you're generating as you're swimming through the water. So what it may look like that they're having their head up high, it may actually just be, or maybe low. I'm sorry, maybe
they're
low
in the
or high.
they're
I'm
in the
sorry.
wake. They're in
It
the
just
wake.
it just may be the way that the wave that wake is hitting them.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah,
But
because I really focus on keeping my head low, right?
mhm, yeah,
Because I'm notorious for my legs sinking. So I know like when my head is low, um,
and,
but then we have this dynamic, John, of in an open water race, you got to
yeah,
look forward,
yeah,
and you, especially if you're on somebody's feet,
right,
you want to be sneaking the peak for the bubbles and the feet,
yeah,
and so it's difficult. Like
it,
so pool swimming is really easy. I could look down all day long,
yeah.
but when I'm in a race, I'm tilting my head back.
No, I'll give you, it's the biking analogy to turtling.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to turtle. It's not just putting your head down in biking. It's a little bit more, a funny contortion that you need to do to get in that position just so you can still see where you're going, but have your head down. That's sort of what it's not the same. You're not trying to turtle in swimming, but it's the same type of concept that, yeah, too low of the head is not any better than too high of the head because once you get the water rushing over you, that's not necessarily a good thing either.
Mm,
Although if you can swim underwater, that's actually
the
pretty good
best, right?
because it does reduce the wave drag that you generate during swimming. That's why Burkoff Blast, back in the day, I mean, he discovered he could do the whole backstroke underwater and do a dolphin kick and swim faster that way than actually swimming on the surface of the water backstroke. So yeah, that
So obviously, head position is big,
yeah,
and I think in this context also, it's this is a mistake that I used to make, and I still I think make it is my head is nice and low, but then I do this to breathe. So
yes,
I stand and
yeah,
then turn instead of just
yeah,
letting my body turn
yeah,
with it. And I
yeah.
think that's a pretty common mistake.
No, that's a great one, and yeah, you need to get to a point where you can turn and breathe and literally have one eye still in the water. And I'll often do that. Sometimes I'll just look underwater. Sometimes I'll look on the surface and close one eye or the other just to check and see where I'm at
Yeah.
with that. So no, that's good. But sighting. I can't remember. Does he have another one for sighting later on?
Um,
But sighting that's the biggest area for triathletes where they lift their head too high. And you really just need to do, sometimes you call it alligator, look, just quick little snapshots and lift the head just a little bit. Now,
yeah.
except when you need to know where you're going. And then it's better to make sure you're headed in the right direction and you're sighting correctly. And so finding that buoy.
Cool. All right, let's move on. Number 14, do many short repetitions for stroke quality. This is the exact opposite of what you do. Um, it takes fitness to swim with good technique for long durations. Start shorter and swim faster. 50 times 50 works wonders.
Hmm.
Don't have time to do a 2,500-meter main set, drop the warm up and the warm down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I,
No,
I, I personally think this is good.
hmm.
And we talked about like the rest cycles and this and that, but I think that there needs to be some amount of short, fast stuff
Hmm.
in swimming. In particular, it's kind of the theory of if you never swim fast,
Yeah.
like the analogy, not really an analogy, but if you can do let's say you can do a 50 and the 50 is at a 2-minute pace. And
Hmm.
that's your absolute fastest 50 you could do.
Yeah.
Well, you're never going to be able to do a 500 at 150 if your 50, is at 2 minutes.
That's right.
If you don't have the technique
Mm-hmm.
even at a short distance to go fast, you're never going to be able to. We know it doesn't matter how much fitness
Yep.
you have.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
No, totally. I do agree with this as a good concept that you do need to, you got to be able to sustain good technique.
Yeah.
And so it's good to swim a short distance with good technique, rest, make sure that, okay, I'm doing it right. Okay, do it again. And that repetition is excellent.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan, and like we've talked about before, it's not like this is something you would do every session,
Yeah.
but there should, in my opinion, there should be sessions that are dedicated to swim
Mhm.
technique and doing shorter where you can
Yeah.
actually have thought. The other thing I'm a big fan of is obviously of like keeping track of time, right?
Hmm.
So if I'm doing, let's say I'm doing 40 50s because I've never done 50, but if
Yeah.
I've done 40, is so let's say I'm doing 42 seconds, and all of a sudden goes to 43, 44.
Hmm.
I need more rest
Yeah.
because I can't hold my technique anymore with my
Hmm.
fatigue. Or if I say, okay, I'm going to work on something. So I'm going to work on, I don't know, keep my elbow a little higher.
Yeah.
If I keep my elbow a little higher, now I'm doing 39, 38, 39, 38. It's like, okay, that's working.
Yeah.
I'm getting I'm getting feedback, and it kind of goes back to the old basketball, right? You get instant feedback when you shoot a basketball,
Yeah. That's right.
right? You either make it or you don't.
Hmm.
And this is something similar to that. In swimming, we talked about it's really hard to get feedback.
Hmm.
But if you get feedback from the clock and
Yeah.
saying you're moving faster with what you're doing, it's
Hmm.
probably a good thing.
Yep. No,
And you
I
can
think
get
that's
that
right.
with the short stuff. If you do, let's say, 4 500s, and you do one at, I don't know, 850, then 845,
Hmm. Yep.
you could just be getting tired. You could be like, it's probably not a technical thing that was different.
Hmm. No, I think that's great, and I think that's a good way to approach learning good technique.
Yeah, I do too. But obviously, it's got to be good technique.
You got to get there, right?
You got to get there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we kind of both agree on that one. Learn to swim with a higher stroke rate. So this takes conditioning. It will pay off on race day, in particular, anytime swimming in a group and in rough conditions.
Hmm.
So this is an interesting one, right? Because pretty much every swim coach I've ever had is telling me, "Oh, your stroke rate's too high.
Hmm.
You got to go longer and slower."
Right.
And so, what are your thoughts on stroke rate, especially in the context of open water swimming?
Well, okay, so we touched on it a little bit last time.
Yeah,
Um, I'm a firm believer that you need to have different gears in swimming,
I agree.
especially open water. And you need to be comfortable at sometimes doing a higher stroke rate and sometimes a lower stroke rate. But it's not, I don't necessarily focus on the specific stroke rate because your velocity is a function of how long your stroke is and how fast you're stroking. So it is, yeah, if you have, if someone says, oh, you have too fast of a stroke rate, that probably means that they're not seeing the stroke distance.
That's the key.
And
Exactly.
so then you're moving your arms fast, but that's not necessarily moving you faster. And so, there's a funny, relationship between stroke rate and swim velocity, and it's not always faster. Stroke rate means faster velocity because you do need to have that stroke distance. So
And John, I love the fact that you mentioned gears. I
that way.
love
Oh yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
so the average age group triathlete maybe has 4 gears,
Hmm.
right? They got their Ironman gear, their half Ironman gear, their Olympic gear, and the
That's
sprint,
true. Yeah.
right? But well, and I'm trying to be a little bit funny here, but also it's true, right? Like
Hmm.
we don't have that many gears.
All
When
right.
you look at a high level swimmer, they may have 10,
Hmm.
12 different speeds that they can go at.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And know that they're going those
and
speeds.
know that they're going that, right? It's like, their coach could come and say, okay, let's do these on 110. Okay,
Yeah.
boom. Okay, let's do these
Hmm.
on 120. Okay, no,
Right.
boom. And they can just do that.
Hmm.
Whereas the age group triathletes that I've been around, they've got go fast,
Yeah.
go easy.
Right.
and there's not much else in between. So I love the fact that you mentioned that because I think we need to develop gears.
Hmm.
And because once again, if the water is rough and there's a bunch
Yep.
of people around you, you know what? You probably actually have to increase your stroke rate.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
You're not going to get
and
that nice long glide. And
yep. And also, with waves, you do swim differently into waves and when you're swimming with the waves, or if they're even breaking on the side. And so that's again situations that you need to be able to change your stroke and around the turns at buoys.
yeah,
So that's a whole nother area that is good to practice, swim technique. And a lot of that is, stroke rate and trying to make that to navigate that buoy. And like you said, it could be crowded, and that takes some practice. So
and we talked a little bit about swim golf last time, but it's I think that if you can increase your stroke rate but keep the same
yeah,
distance per stroke,
that's
you're winning.
perfect. That's right.
You're winning,
That's
right?
exactly right. Yeah.
So, and what I've read and heard from swim coaches is that using like like the Finnish tempo trainer, where
Hmm.
you can actually and you slowly go. So
Yeah.
let's say you're at 50 strokes per minute and you move it up to 52,
Hmm.
and you do it really really slow. Oftentimes you will not decrease your distance per stroke.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what what I've also heard is people like, okay, they're going to go from they've heard that 65 is where they need to be, so they put the tempo
Mm.
trainer on. Okay, I'm 65, but
Right. Right.
they were at 45, and then they're just.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I think it is you're right. It's a combination of
Hmm.
distance per stroke and stroke rate, and
Hmm.
obviously we want them both to be as high as possible.
Yeah. But and going for stroke rate is good when you have good distance. But going the other way, where you're trying to just increase your stroke distance for the sake of increasing stroke distance, that's not necessarily going to get you faster because you're not going to be having enough period of time where you're generating propulsive force. So
You don't get as tired.
what's that?
You don't get as tired.
That's true. Well, I don't know.
Just push and just go as long as you can.
Yeah,
Push.
that's right. Well, but you could just kick all the way across the pool and have no
That's true.
stroke. So,
That's true. Okay, let's move on.
all right.
If you need to, I love this one, by the way. If you need to write your swim sessions down on a whiteboard or paper,
Yeah,
it's too complicated. Keep it simple. Oh, John, I just love this one so much because I believe this.
yeah, huh?
Um, I believe that the problem is, though, many swimmers need to be entertained, and the entertainment comes from variety,
Yeah, that's right.
right? And like the 50-50s,
Hmm.
that's a perfect swim set,
Yeah, right.
right, for accomplishing a goal.
Hmm.
And you prescribe that for people. 50-50s, oh, that's
Yeah,
horrible.
right.
I can't wrap my head around that. But you could come up with 2500 any other way.
Yeah,
Well, that was excellent.
yeah, right.
Well, we're gonna, it to me, like, I don't know, it's difficult because I write some programs for people, and
Yeah,
I have a hard time because I want it, obviously want it to be entertaining,
yeah, right.
but it's just work.
Yeah.
What,
Well,
what do
you
you think?
know, and well, back when I did coach, I coached high school and coached college, and you're partly right. Is you had to keep the interest to get 4,000 or 5,000 yards in, and because you're not just going to go do 50-50s or 150s every time, and you got to okay, well now let's do it this way. So there is a little bit of you're right. I didn't think of it that way, but it is entertainment or variety. But you do try to break your work up into different. When you're doing that amount of volume, you try to highlight different parts that you're trying to work on. But yeah, you know me, I'm pretty simple in my workouts now, but
Well, my swim workouts are personally are very structured. Like,
yeah,
just yesterday I warmed up, then I did pretty long warm up, but then I did 20 25s, 20 50s, 6 100s, and I'm out.
yeah,
Don't have to write it down. I know my
hmm,
rest intervals,
yeah,
and I knew what I was trying to accomplish.
hmm,
Didn't need to be entertained.
yeah,
Um, but it mentally is hard for me to do, let's say, the exact same thing in say 1500s.
hmm, yeah,
You know, it's just it's more of a mental thing. But the weird thing is, right, running, I have no problem. Hey, we're gonna do 8 times 1K repeat.
Hmm.
Okay, no
Yeah.
problem,
Right.
right? I don't have to do 1K, then 500, then 250. Then I
Yeah.
can just do it. And same on with the biking. Almost all the intervals are very structured. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
5 times 5, six
Hmm.
times four, 8 times 4.
Hmm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about
That's
swimming.
funny. Yeah. Well, again, in swimming, especially from a swim team perspective, you are training those different gears as we talked about. You are trying to have some sprint work in there, which is,
But well,
quite healthy.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you could do sprint day where you're
Hmm.
doing 25s and 50s, let's say, and then you're going to do some distance days where you're doing like 500s or 400s or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same in running. Like I'll do some track workouts where it's like 200s or 400,
Hmm.
but you wouldn't do 200s, 400s, 800s, 1600s all in the same day.
Yeah. Right.
But swimmers do that all the time.
Well, it's,
I think it's the entertainment because everyone gets bored of looking at that black line all the time. So
it,
we got
it,
to keep them entertained.
I can't argue against that part, but it is, triathlon is different than swimming.
Yes.
And I think, swimmers, their events last a very short period of time, and they need to build a volume and be able to achieve those high velocities and, very quickly. That's not triathlon. To swim a 1.2 mile swim, it's different, and your workouts don't need to be as complex as a swimmer's
Yeah.
workout. And
Agreed.
but at the same time, I don't think you're getting to the Olympics in swimming competition if you do my type of workout, which is 1 times 1500, 1 times 2000. You're not
You're
going to make it
you're
because
not gonna
you're
make it.
not getting all the exposures to different techniques. And I don't know, swim technique is funny. It's changed over the years, and it's changed, I don't think by design. It's changed by swimmers who have figured out a new way to swim. How do they figure it out? Well, they've explored through doing all these different drills and different types of workouts. So yeah, swimming workouts are inherently different than triathlon workouts, I think. So, and I think that's what he's saying here too.
Yeah, agreed. And so that's the interesting thing is because the next one goes against this.
Yeah, right, right.
So it says find a good master's program.
Yeah,
Long main sets is a good sign.
yeah,
Swim
yeah.
with others to challenge yourself.
Hmm.
Good programs are the exception rather than the norm, unfortunately. You know, it's interesting because most of the master's programs are complicated and they tend to be geared towards swimmers,
Hmm.
not triathletes. And so there are some good things here, like swim with others to challenge yourself.
Yeah,
I completely agree, right, with that. I also agree that there's not that many good programs out there. Well,
right.
not good programs for triathletes.
Hmm. Well, I actually agree with this as well. Even though I like my long swims, I think there's a lot of benefit to getting in the pool with swimmers, just like I think there's a lot of benefit to run with runners
Yep.
and to bike with bikers. And I think, the one advantage of doing a master's program is you have a coach who's going to tell you what the sets are, and you're not writing it down. You're not spending the time trying to figure it out. You've got someone there who's really going to guide you through the program. And now you've got other people around you doing the same thing. And, that does, it can make it fun. People enjoy swimming together more so than by themselves. And so I know they seem juxtaposed here, juxtaposition here, but at the same
I,
time, I think having a 1 or 2 day where you're doing masters is really beneficial for a lot of triathletes.
and I've swum in a master's program for since I started. I, you
Hmm.
know, my wife runs a master's program, and
Yeah,
so I don't really have a choice. That's going to be that's going to be what I'm going to
yeah,
do.
that's right.
But I think the really, really important thing, and I've had many coaches through that program, is to have an open, honest dialogue with the coach right in the beginning and then
Mhm.
reinforce it later. So the conversation I have with the coaches, hey, listen, thank you so much for being here. Any help you can give me, I am
Hmm.
really thankful for.
Yep.
You want to tell me to do this, jump on my hand and
Yep.
do this, I'll do it. But understand my goal is to swim 2 kilometers or 200,
Yep.
2,000 meters as fast as I can
Hmm.
without killing my legs.
Yep.
Because I still am going to, and they may not understand what it's like to do that and then ride 56 miles and then run a half marathon.
Yep. Yep.
So, and I explain it to them, and I explain like what that goes, the rest of like what goes on. I talk to them about most days when I've come here, I've already ran or I've
Hmm.
already biked, and I'm not just, I'm not disrespecting you, and I don't want
Hmm.
to do 10 times 100 kicking. It's not,
Hmm.
and I'm not afraid to do it.
Right.
It's just not in my best interest, and I'm very open with that, and I also am very open with, listen, I don't really care about other strokes.
Hmm.
So when the rest of the group is doing I'm going to do freestyle, and
Hmm.
and once again, it's not to offend you. It's just I have different goals.
Yep.
And, but I've had that conversation with every coach, not every coach, but my more recent coaches, and it's always met with, well, it seems to have been met with really good. I don't know what the word is, but it's been met really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then I don't feel bad
Hmm.
when I'm not doing the same set as everybody else,
Hmm.
and they don't feel bad because they're not having me do things that I think are stupid.
Yeah. Right.
Like doing work for me, just it doesn't make any sense to me. Like I know
Well,
we talked about it before. There's reasons to do it, but I have about 2 hours of swim time a week.
yeah. No, I totally, yeah, you've got to
And
be time efficient. No,
adding
totally.
to the
And
top,
we've talked about this. This is a point that we will disagree
yeah,
on.
I know.
I do think there's a lot of value in doing IM, in doing flip turns, and
Oh,
even
I
learning
do
how to,
flip turn.
and yeah, that's awesome. And even learning how to dive in with the goggles. I just think that there's all these little things that, doing relay, but there is, that's part of, like you said, called it the entertainment factor. There's a little bit of entertainment with doing a relay or with doing something different. But it also goes back to the idea of, I think a lot of times we need to disrupt our stroke to find a better stroke. And and sometimes you have to flip over and be on your back. And you may all of a sudden learn, oh, well, maybe my arm should be doing this when I'm flipped over on the other side. So, but at the same time, I totally respect and understand where you're at. And to be as time efficient as you need to be, you got to have that conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wouldn't do kick sets either. So,
Especially not like 10 times 100, right? It's
no,
like, there's a half hour of my very valuable
yeah,
time that
yeah,
to me is worthless.
it takes too long.
It takes too
And
long.
in college, one of my co-coaches who he coached the women's team, I was assistant coaching for the men's team, and his warm up was always 500 swim, 500 kick, 500 pull. I'm like, oh, there's a waste of time for. So
Actually,
that 1,500 yards that took whatever
yeah,
40
we
minutes. So,
we actually glossed over the one where it said shorten your warm up and shorten your cool down.
oh yeah, no, I am a firm believer of that, especially for us, because you go to a race, you may not have an opportunity to warm up.
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to figure out how to warm up during the course of your swim and how not to go too fast. So no, you're right. That's a really good point.
And then I will also, we have not talked much about this. We need to podcast on warming up and cooling down.
Mm,
We did some dynamic warm up stuff,
yeah, yeah,
but really briefly, there is very, very little evidence that cooling down does anything for you.
yeah, right.
Like,
I just like cooling down because it's just a nice. I like floating in the water. I swim underwater. I'll just do some fun stuff.
but my swim practice ends at 8:30 at night, and I need to eat.
Yeah, yeah,
So the last thing I need to do is 200 cool down. No, I'll see you.
yeah.
I got to go make dinner.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, no, I like to do. That's where I practice taking my head upside down and all sort of funny. It's silly stuff, but I
All right,
enjoy.
next. Oh, go
All
ahead.
right.
No, next one. Number 18. Do not or don't use swim tools as a crutch. Paddles and pool buoys are tools with specific uses. Don't reach for them out of simple laziness because the set is hard.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, and I know a lot of people do this. Oh, I can't make the interval, so I'm going to use my paddles.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't make the interval and you need to use your paddles,
Mm-hmm.
the interval's wrong for you.
Yeah.
And and that's a difficult thing when dealing with a coach. I've had many coaches, obviously we talked about already, but they're like, okay, we'll do this on this, and well, if you're telling me I need to
Yeah.
do hundreds on 140 and I'm coming in at 139,
Yeah.
well, then I'm going to grab my paddle so I can make it on
Mm-hmm.
and well, that just tells me that it's the wrong interval for me.
Oh yeah. Well, and I told my story. I was addicted to paddles and pull buoys, and I finally had to just put them aside because I was dogging it too much without the tools. And then once I put the tools on, I work, but now
Yeah.
I'm not doing myself any help. And so I eventually said, I need to put these away. And I put them away, and I only use fins and pointy shorts on 1 day a week. And yeah, so don't 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 get addicted to them.
Yeah. And like I said, and don't use them just because you can't make the interval.
Yep. Use them to help your stroke.
Yeah. If you can't make the interval, change your interval. And if you don't have a good enough relationship with your coach to tell your coach that, 2 seconds rest on these 200s is not enough for me,
Yeah. Hey, that
then
leads into number 19.
it sure does. Do not use swim tools when you're fatigued, um, and will otherwise swim with poor quality, because that's what's going to happen, right? You're like, I can't make the interval because I'm fatigued, so I'm going to grab some paddles and or fins or whatever to make it.
Yeah.
Well, you're just reinforcing your
Yeah.
fatigued poor quality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we'd both agree with that one.
No, and that's where you get injured with the paddles, especially. So
Yeah. Well, so that one was pretty. Those ones went hand in hand. Oh, let's go number 20. Dry land and gym can help swimming for some via improved neuromuscular recruitment.
mm-hmm.
And this is use body weight and tubing, not machines.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I've talked about the importance of standing in front of a mirror and trying to do your swim stroke.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that because you get to see what's going on. Hey, even better. And this, I was fortunate enough to do this in college, is they had mirrors on the bottom and you swam over them. And my gosh, that
Wow.
shows you,
That'd be
yeah,
awesome.
that was like, oh, that was an eye opener because now you're doing it and watching it. It was really pretty amazing. So, but given that we don't have that ability now anywhere that I know in town, stand in front of a mirror, and if you can't do the stroke you're trying to tell yourself you're going to do in the water, if you can't do it on dry land, you won't do it in the water.
And I think also with just doing some of the tubing exercises,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually mimic a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
movements.
Yeah.
And it's not about being able to do like a lat pull down and pull down 150 pounds,
Right. Right.
because that's not what really we're trying to. That's not the kind of strength we're trying to gain here.
Yeah.
We're trying to gain strength to do something 10,000 times,
Mm-hmm.
not 8 times.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And so yes, I'm a big believer of body weight exercises in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give this a little free tip. In my opinion, the muscle, the serratus anterior, which we did talk about on an episode a long time ago, is one of the most important muscles there is to swimming.
Mm.
It actually holds your shoulder blade down to your body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one of my very very favorite exercises is to do that, something called the push up plus. So where you're just doing it's a scapular push up. So you're going from here
Okay.
to here. You're just moving the blade.
Mm-hmm.
It's body weight only. I do it before I swim.
Mm.
It's just such a great exercise, and doesn't take anything.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard to do, to
Mm.
be honest with you, but it's hard to do under control. And
Yeah.
and the serratus anterior is one of those muscles that is super important, but really actually quite difficult to train.
Yeah. Well, and I know that he wrote these. I love that, and I know he wrote these. About, when was this posted?
2012.
2012. Yeah. All right. So, I don't know how popular the Vasa trainer was, but I've been messing around with that, and I actually like it. It certainly does not. It doesn't really improve my swim fitness, but it does allow me to work on certain parts of the stroke. And the Vasa is a machine that you lie down horizontally, and it's like your bungee cords, but it's hooked into a motor that you then propel. So it's the same concept, but it will adjust resistance a little bit more than the tubing. And you're right. I think you can mimic a lot. Some critical parts of the stroke, especially the early part, you can mimic that pretty well with those. I wouldn't use that to train for an Ironman for full time, but adding in a little bit of that actually I think is good.
Yeah, and we talked about it before. I'm the guy before every swim practice that has his tubing out,
Yeah,
and I do 5 to 7 minutes of
yeah,
exercise, and
yeah.
and I do it to warm up, but I also do it because it's like, okay, this is swim time. It's time. It's just kind of dedicated time that I know I'll do it,
Yeah.
and whether it helps my swimming that day or not doesn't really matter. It's the
Hmm.
long haul. If I do it 3 times a week, I feel like that's an easy win. And
Yep.
and it's not like, oh, I'll get to that. It's like I just it's an anchor for me. I do it every time. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so there's a bonus and a number 21 with an edit. So bonus, and you mentioned this one.
Yeah, we're bookending. That's good. I
Yes.
like that.
Love swimming if you want to get faster.
Yeah.
And embrace the process of, just notice I said that the American way, the process of getting faster in the water. Chlorine sweat is a good thing.
Yep.
Okay, so John, after we spoke last week, I decided that I am going to love swimming.
There you go.
And
Just say it before you jump in every time, even if you
and
don't.
I did. You told me
Yep.
that, and I did. So I swam twice this week,
Yep.
and I've determined that I am going to love the process, exactly what
Yep.
it says here, of getting faster.
Yep.
I don't have to love swimming, but I love getting faster.
I like it. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, what can I do today to get a
Hmm.
little bit faster?
Yep.
And if I feel like I did that, then I'm gonna love that.
That's great. No, say that, and then jump in and start your swim.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah. So I may never love swimming, but I'm gonna love, because here's the thing: is I love improving. Like one of
Yeah,
the
that's
like
right.
one of the things that was swimming to me, because as we've talked about it, I didn't really know how to swim till I was 39. Still
Oh,
don't
that's amazing.
really
Yeah.
know how.
Hmm.
Um, is the puzzle.
Hmm.
Swimming is an enigma,
Hmm.
and like figuring it out to me
Yeah.
has been the bane of my existence, but also it's like the one of the greatest challenges of my life.
Yeah.
Like I can go run and get faster.
Hmm.
I know how to do that. I
Yeah.
can go bike more and get faster.
Hmm.
There was a time, I hate to admit it, I swam 45 days in a row
Yeah.
because I was just dead set. I'm going to get faster.
Hmm.
Now that was the worst thing I could have done. This was back a long time ago, but it was more back then. It was a battle, and now
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not a battle. I gotta embrace it.
Yep.
And this process of going through these 20 things and coming up with this one, that's been my biggest takeaway.
I think that's great because even when if you go in with the mindset I don't like I don't that negative, you eventually avoid it. And I don't think anyone, I'm using you, I mean everybody, you don't pay attention to those little details that are going to help you. And when you sit back and say I enjoy it, I enjoy the process, that's where the magic happens. So,
All right, so
and that leads to number 21.
which is kind of what we talked about earlier, but
Yeah.
repetition is your friend. Variety is for the weak-minded and interferes with the learning process.
I don't know about that part, but
Repetition, repetition.
yeah, yeah. I would say frequency.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say variety is for the weak mind. I think variety is actually good for running, biking, and swimming.
yeah,
But yeah, overall repetition and frequency is really really critical.
yeah, yeah. It's it's such a conundrum. We talked about it is the mediocrity of a triathlete, right?
Hmm.
Is you're never going to be the best swimmer in the world. You're never going to be the best biker. You're never going to be the best runner.
Hmm.
You want to be the best triathlete.
Yeah.
And in order to make that happen, you're right. Consistency, we've talked about that, and repetition
Yeah.
is what will get you there. So I completely agree.
Oh, these have been great to go through.
Yeah, no, I've thoroughly enjoyed going through
Yeah.
these. And hope we get a lot of comments again on the Facebook
Yeah.
page this week, because last week definitely generated a lot, and I
Yeah.
think this week will as well. These are good things, and here's the thing: so even if you don't agree with all of them, hopefully it makes people think and makes us think.
Hmm.
About our swimming. So this is great. I wish I had the top 20 things for running and triathletes. Maybe I should write that.
Maybe we need to put them down. Maybe we did 5K tips at one point, but maybe we really need to put pen to paper on those.
Yeah, 20 tips for being a better runner. Because I think
Yeah.
actually it's interesting. It seems to me like it's either the running or the swimming that is the Achilles heel
Yeah.
for athletes.
Yep. That's true.
So
Well,
anyway, that was great. Thanks, John.
yeah, this has been fun.
Hope you have a great weekend, and your toe is on the mend.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
we'll be tracking everybody tomorrow. That'll be
Is it
our
tomorrow
home.
or is it Sunday?
It's the 26th. It's tomorrow.
Oh man, shoot!
Right?
Good thing you said something, because I was planning on doing it on Sunday.
Well,
I've been late to the party.
now you're doubting me. I better.
Well, you were signed up for it. I'm sure you're right.
Well, but I put it out of my mind now. It's
Yeah.
let me check quick. Ironman, Coeur d'Alene, and it took me so long to learn how to spell it.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh,
That's a good one.
it's June 27th.
It is Sunday.
Oh, it is Sunday. Okay. I got to edit my post then. I said it's tomorrow.
And then also, I don't know if anyone from the club is doing Lubbock 70.3 is also.
Oh, yeah. Is anyone doing Lubbock? And Des Moines? Des Moines.
Des Moines was last weekend.
Okay, it was last weekend. Okay.
And so they actually ended up having a 3-hour delay on the start. I don't know if you heard about this,
Hmm.
because of thunderstorms.
Oh, right. I did hear about that. That's right.
And then they ended up they could only do one loop of the bike because they were going to lose the permits for the road.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay.
So they did a full swim, half a bike, and then a full run. To me,
Hmm.
that would have been like the worst day ever.
Yeah.
It's like cut the swim in half.
Yeah. Oh, double the swim.
Yeah, double the swim, double it.
Oh,
So the good news is that pretty much everybody I know that went there, they made their goals.
okay.
Right? If your goal was to go under 4:30, it was a pretty easy day to go under 4:30.
Oh, wow.
Well, when you only had an hour and 15 minute or hour and 10 minute bike.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
But it is disappointing for people too, like when races. And we should talk about that, when races get cut short and what
Yeah.
happens.
Right.
But it can be really disappointing for people, especially if it's their first 70.3 and they want to
Mhm.
they want to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Was it Ironman Arizona that they? Oh no, they ended up not racing. It was last year. They ended up pulling the plug. Remember that they
Oh,
were going to shorten the bike all the way down, and people were
that's right.
disappointed.
That's right. That's right.
It's hard. That's the thing.
Gotta adapt. It is hard.
Yeah. All right, John. We'll
Hey,
take
good
care.
talking.
Yep. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.